class of 2019, and he's going to be our guest speaker. So just to give you a little history, what we've tried to accomplish here is starting 4 years ago, our guest speaker was my classmate, Steve Cannon, at the time the president of Mercedes-Benz USA. As many of you know, he's now the president of the Arthur Blank family businesses, Falcons, the United, PGA Golf Store. And then we, the next year we went to the Air Force Academy, and Colonel Rebecca Gray from the Southern Company and an active duty reserve colonel was the next speaker. Of note, she was an All-American swimmer at the Air Force Academy. And as a correction, she said she got an A in physics. She didn't. She came clean after the interview. And then last year we had Naval Academy graduate 86, Jill Wallace, who is currently the military program director for Microsoft USA. And so we wanted to move on to the next service academy, and I thought, talking to Sana, who is also on our board, we said, let's get a Merchant Marine Academy spokesperson. So we kicked that around, and then we came up with the great idea that a lot of the folks in this room probably don't know much about the Merchant Marine Academy. In my mind, it's a hidden secret. And so we went out and combed the graduates, and Brian said yes. And so here he is, a newly commissioned ensign in the United States Navy. And this is his first public appearance outside graduation in his new uniform.
I think I forgot the gravy in the coffee. I don't see it.
Yeah, you're okay. But you might want to get a little tighter haircut next time. When I get Navy, you're probably okay.
And so it begins.
So as I mentioned earlier, his bio is there in front of your table. He put that together for me. I just don't remember when I was a newly commissioned second lieutenant that my bio looked that good. So well done, Brian, well done. So right now I'd like to say, first of all, thank you, Brian. And behalf of the West Point Society and everyone here, we'd like to ask you to indulge us in a few questions, and we're going to get started. So we'll start off real quickly. Brian, why don't you tell us a little bit of, about yourself and your story?
Well, I'm a native of Lawrenceville, Georgia, just up 85 and 316 a little bit. I went to St. Pius X Catholic High School, and I was here 4 years ago, and I honestly can't believe I'm up here. I mean, when I was here, the speaker was a Medal of Honor recipient, so when I got the call that I was supposed to speak, I was kind of surprised. But it's definitely an honor to be here. At the Academy, it's the point of today, basically, I want to just try and give some awareness about the Academy, because it offers a lot that it offers a lot that the Coast Guard Academy doesn't have. The Coast Guard and Merchant Marine Academy are like the nemesis with each other. So, but I just want to try and give some awareness, because we're like the hidden gem. And I mean, before I came, I didn't really know what it was either until somebody told me. So, so at the Academy, I was on the color guard, like it says in my bio, which was pretty cool. I came to events like this and walked in with the flag, and for 5 minutes of work, we ate a whole bunch of food and everything. So that was pretty nice. I was a club president of the Newman Club, and just really a lot of club involvement, but I was what they call a NARP, a non-athletic regular person. So I never played any sports or anything, but I was in lots of clubs and all that.
Did you say NARP?
NARP, N-A-R-P. It's a compliment.
Indeed. I know some NARPs.
So over my time, the thing that really sets Kings Point apart, might be kind of jumping ahead here, but we have what's called sea year. So all the midshipmen go out for 1 of the 4 years at sea, split up 4 months and 8 months. So I went to 19 different countries, 3 or 4 different ships, and you're out getting real world experience and things you can't learn in a textbook. So that's really kind of what sets us apart.
It is, that's a great segue. So that's a little bit different than the other service academies where they actually go to sea and perform the duties as a merchant mariner. Is it in between your junior and senior year? Tell us when you actually did that.
Right, so your sophomore year, you go out for 4 months, and that 4 months seems like a long time. And then your junior year, you go out for 8 months, and that really seems like a long time. But it goes by pretty quick. When you go back, when you're on the ship, everything, like time pauses, and you come back from your time on the ship, and everything's different, but it felt like only a couple weeks for you. So it's an interesting time passage.
So tell us about the 2 ships that you're on for both of those sea duties.
Well, we went through a little bit of they call it the sea year stand down for administrative reasons, I guess, my sophomore year. So I was on our training ship. It used to be like a NASA ship to pick up the rocket boosters. But the second sailing is when I was really on all the cool ships. I was on a container ship, so like Captain Phillips, except minus all of the pirates. And the other ship was a car carrier, so it looks like a floating shoebox, basically, and you just carry a whole bunch of cars and military equipment all around the world. And I circumnavigated on that ship too, so we went all the way around, and I can vouch that the world is not flat.
Did you get a title or some kind of certificate for circumnavigating the world?
They call it the Order of Magellan. There's no like hazing or anything. I didn't cross the equator ever. I wanted to, but I guess I'll be crossing as an officer, hopefully.
Very good, very good. So I did get the chance to meet Brian before today's luncheon, and my first question to him was, when he got the call, other than he probably felt a little pressure that he had to accept, but deep down, why did you accept the invitation to speak today?
It's such an honor, really, because I was sitting in your chairs when I was here as an appointee, and everything comes full circle. Like, I went to a few of the Service Academy days. I'm sure lots of you went to that, Senator Isaacson's, and I went there as an appointee, and I also went there manning the table for Kings Point. So it seems like everything's continually full circle, and here I am up here. Never would have thought.
So you gave us a little bit of KP gouge or poop, whatever you guys call it, at your academy when you said, am I saying it right? NARP, right? N-A-R-P? I wasn't a NARP. But I'm pretty sure Samir was. Can you give us some other Kings Point, KP lingo?
Do tomorrow. That comes to my mind. If it's due tomorrow, you do it tomorrow. And if you do it last minute, it only takes a minute. I prepared for today much earlier than yesterday, so I'm working on it.
So take us through the 4-year, the 4th class system each year and what you guys call each other.
So when you first show up, you're a plebe candidate. You're not quite a plebe yet, and we call it indoctrination. It's basically I don't know what the other academies call it, but it's like, I think 3 weeks or something like that. It's not very long, but you show up and everybody's standing in line, and you all have your top button buttons on your polos and things, with your socks all the way up to your knees, and everybody just starts yelling at you right away, and that's always when everybody starts questioning like what's happening here. But then after that, we lucked out actually. Ours started just a few days before the 4th of July, so we got to go watch the fireworks and everything, but then it was back to the barracks after that. And so after indoctrination's over, you're finally accepted into the regiment as, you become a plebe at that point, and plebe is still the lowest. So after indoctrination, you're a plebe, and then throughout all of your plebe year, basically only a few months before the end of the year, before recognition, and that's the same in all the academies, I think. Then you finally become a 4th classman and you're recognized as a midshipman in the regiment. So that's basically your 4th class year, and then even after you're recognized, you're just known as a super plebe until you go out to sea, because it's only like the next few months after that. So even though you're recognized, there's still a few little hurdles you have to jump through, and then it's straight to sea after that for 4 months, all around. And the interesting thing is, Kings Point midshipmen especially, I'm not sure about the other academies, but you become you're on the front lines of the news, right? I mean, just recently there's the news of Iran with the drone and the 2 tankers. I sailed through the Gulf of Oman, so I was like in those areas. And all the King's Partners over there, you're going to be going in these places too with only a few years. So you're going to be seeing all of the news headlines and everything firsthand. And it really becomes personal, and I think that's the coolest thing.
All right, so what happens your junior and senior year? What kind of cool names do you have for each other?
Just last names, really. It's junior and senior year. Junior year is a lot of fun, actually, before you start have to worry about license. So at our school, everybody graduates with 3 things. They graduate with their Bachelor of Science with a choice of 5 full majors. And you graduate with your commission in the Navy or any of the armed forces. So you can go, I could go Army, I could have gone Air Force, I could have done Coast Guard. And you also graduate with your unlimited tonnage or unlimited horsepower merchant mariner officer license. So you graduate with 3 things, and that's also what sets us apart too, because we get 3 credentials. But all of senior year basically is just in preparation to pass the Coast Guard license test, which is basically just a series of 7 tests, 4 hours each, 3 hours each, and it's essentially a final exam of your 4 years at the academy. So they can ask you anything from knot tying to celestial navigation, really, in those. So that's all of senior year's preparation for that.
Very nice. So what are those 5 degrees that you can graduate with?
So it's split into 2. There's the engine and there's deck on deck. So deck deals with more of like business and navigation. So the 2 majors are just marine transportation, and then there's maritime logistics and security, which is basically the same thing with a few extra competencies, basically. And then the engineering, there's systems engineering, shipyard engineering, and then just straight engineering. But there's always kind of a little battle between the engine and deck at our school, because they say that the deckies do nothing, but we do some stuff.
Yeah, you narked it. Right? All right, very good. So moving right along. So I was going to ask you to share a little bit about, your summer experience. You talked about it already. So, all of the plebe candidates, midshipman candidates, cadet candidates, be it they're going to straight into the academy or the prep school, are looking at that same type of summer experience ahead of them. So, what are some words of wisdom or advice that you have for them?
Well, just what immediately jumps to my mind is don't show up in a pink polo and blue shorts, because they will. This didn't happen to me, but somebody else actually did this, and they started calling him Candidate Cotton Candy. And he did not graduate.
Samir, what did you wear?
I came dressed as a priest.
A priest?
I'm just kidding.
Okay. I won't ask Ken Costanza because there's no telling what he wore on our day.
But on a more serious note, you just need to know that you're not going to get through the 4 years alone. You're going to lean on your shipmates, lean on your, whatever the shipmate is for not on ships, your mates, I guess. But because you're not going to make it through alone, everything from tacking your pockets to shining your shoes, I could never tack my pockets. So basically you have to like sew your pockets shut, and I could never do that, so I ended up shining people's shoes and they did it for me. New uniform. But you just gotta always lean on your teammates, and you need to learn to trust them because they're gonna be trusting you, and it's a team process. It's not individual.
So are these sewn?
I did. I checked them.
So why don't you take us to your uniform? Because I've never seen this uniform before. Has anybody else in this room seen this uniform? Very good. So tell us about this uniform.
So when you're a plebe, before you get anything to put on it, you kind of look like a UPS worker. So then once you finally get all the pins to put on it, it looks a little bit better. So this is the one as if like just a few weeks ago I was wearing. Basically I had a Lieutenant JG bars, midshipman Lieutenant JG. I was the company logistics officer, so I made sure all the toilet paper was stocked in our company. And yeah, basically it's the same uniform. It's just service khakis. So the chiefs wear it in the Navy, and the officers wear it in the Navy too. So this is what we wore every day.
And these are the pockets that you're talking about?
Well, I forgot that one.
we'll make sure those demerits get retroactively put on the record. So moving right along, we talked about the words of advice for the cadet summer that's coming up to the midship summer. The next question I want to say is, what made you decide the branch of service? And tell us a little bit about that. You mentioned it briefly. It's a lot different, so I'll just set the stage in that at the Merchant Marine Academy, they really can go into any of the branches of service. And so take us through that and your decision-making process of why you chose the Navy.
Well, I always knew I was going to lean towards like the military lifestyle, and it wasn't until I went on a Boy Scout trip down in the Florida Keys at Sea Base. I'm sure maybe a few of you have gone down there. But we were on a week-long sailing trip on like a 75-foot schooner, and that's really when I knew that I wanted to be on the water. And the rest is history. I got into Kings Point, I showed up, and it all just happened so quickly. I mean, I can't believe that was only 4 years ago. And also, what makes our school a little bit different is, like we talked about it before, the C year, but we're the only school, we're the only federal service academy that can fly at battle standard, because we're the only service academy that's lost active midshipmen in theaters of war. And World War II, we lost 142 midshipmen who went out on their sea years and their ships were sunk by the German wolf packs and the U-boats and all of that during war. So we're the only academy that can fly at the battle standard, and that's a big thing at our school is the 142. You always remember the 142.
Yeah, that really moved me when you told me that. The 142. So the NARP's going to stick in my head too. So tell us the process of what it took for you to be commissioned in the Navy, you know, going through the Merchant Marine, because you had classmates going into different branches of service. So how does that path look, and how does the path look for the other branches?
Well, going active Navy is a little more normal than going Air Force or something, because everyone graduates either active in one of the branches or as a reserve officer in the Naval Reserve. So everything is already kind of tailored a little bit towards Navy to begin with. I'm not entirely sure how it works for Air Force, because we don't really have any involvement with aircraft or anything. But there's built into our curriculum, there's naval science classes and things like that. So we have an ethics class, and all of the designated curriculum is met in terms of all the Navy things. And I know the Marine Corps, there's opportunities. I think a few of our midshipmen went to the Camp Leatherneck, I think is the name, at the Naval Academy, where they can get their Eagle, Globe, and Anchor early. And I'd like to congratulate one of my classmates. He's not here, but he got #1 at Camp Leatherneck and beat all the Naval Academy guys with that too. So
Yeah, beat Navy. I like that guy. We'll have him come speak in 4 years next turn up. So tell him good work. So what's next? What happens to you now that you're commissioned, and what's in your near future?
So actually, just this next Sunday, I fly back to Kings Point, and I'm actually working there now for the next 70 days until my orders get cut out. And I'm gonna jump between Norfolk and Mayport, Florida, a couple different times before eventually I end up on my ship down in Mayport. It's the USS Thomas Hudler. It's a destroyer. Brand new, it's commissioned like 5 months ago, so it's got that new ship smell. So I got a few more classes to tie up, like basic division officer courses and things like that. So that's the next few months for me, and eventually I'll be attached to the ship.
Very good. Well, hey, I'm going to open up to some questions from the audience. So does anyone have a question for Brian? All right, we'll start over here. So if you could, please stand up and tell us your name, where you're from, and where you're headed, and then ask your question.
My name is Lydia Gary. My brother is going to West Point, and I was wondering, who was your ring dance date?
She's right here. This is Julia Dickerson. Graduated from University of Dallas just a few weeks ago.
So how was the ring dance?
It was awful. No. It was a great time. That's always like the big thing is all your 4 years you're working towards ring dance. And this is the one right here. it's such a surreal thing because it's always what, your freshman year, your sophomore year, you're always watching all of the seniors continually like go through all of these almost rites of passage, and when it eventually becomes your turn, it's hard to believe that it's actually there. I still can't believe I'm graduated in general. I almost introduced myself as midshipman of Rainwater. So it was a great time though.
Very good. When is your ring dance held?
It's held like towards the end of I'd say about midway through your junior year. So you get them early, and it's up to you to make sure the 2019 on your ring actually happens after that. I'm not sure. I think the company might change it for free. I don't know. But I didn't want to find it out.
All right, do we have another question? Or here you go.
My name is Donovan Williams, and I'll be attending the Air Force Academy next week. And my question is, what grade did you get in physics?
Physics. Well, I know they do the research, so I'm gonna have to be honest here. I think it might have been a B- or something.
Could have been worse. Not as good as my grade that I got in physics. All right, do we have another question out here?
I'm a mom of a future Air Force Academy person. Did you get to spend much time in New York City, like experiencing the city there?
Yes, I did, and that's where the color guard. We always went to the city and all these like fancy events like this. But you really can't enjoy it until senior year. But then that's also right when you start all your preparations. So you get the taste of it right before you have to move out. So it's great though. It's only like a 30-minute train ride from our school down to like Midtown Manhattan. So it's a great time.
All right, anyone else got a question? Here you go.
Hello, I'm Jay Hages. I'm going to West Point, and I wanted to ask, when did you feel the most homesick?
Homesick. I'd have to say, might have been in Djibouti. It's not much familiarity with my home life here in Djibouti. Maybe it was in Salalah. We were in a cab in Salalah, and the cab driver kept asking me if I would like to go to his house in the mountains. I kept on politely answering no, like I've seen that movie. I'm sure he's a friendly guy, but I'm not trying to get 143.
Very good. Djibouti, how long were you there?
Pretty quick.
All right, any other questions? Here you go.
Hi, my name is Leah Walker. I will be attending your rival school, the Coast Guard Academy. I was wondering, what was your favorite Kings Point memory?
I put this question in my yearbook. It was one of the questions they asked, and it's kind of funny, but it was ring dance. No, it was actually just all of senior year really. Ring dance or graduation, all the traditions each year. When we pass the license, they have a bell that everybody goes and rings the bell. And it's such a surreal feeling, and that's part of like the Coast Guard rivalry, because the Coast Guard is the one that administers these tests. So being Coast Guard means you're like also beating those tests too. And this year, 66% of our class didn't pass on the first time, and of course they told us that when everybody's waiting in line to hear their results. So everybody assumes they're the 33%, but everything worked out fine.
Hi, my name is Sky Williams. I'll be attending West Point in 2 weeks. I'll go Army Navy. My question is, how did you overcome your most challenging experience?
I guess I kind of hit on it before as your teammates, because everything is going to be more challenging than each individual can handle, and you can only do it, like I said, leaning on your teammates and as a unit, because you're not graduating as I'm not the class of Brian Rainwater, I'm the class of 2019, and there's just a unit cohesion that you have to get through all of your difficulties, because hopefully everybody's difficulties don't line up and everybody's able to help in their own way and achieve the common goal.
Any other questions? Here we go.
My name is Alex Robertson. I'm attending the United States Merchant Marine Academy. And I have a question. What is something that you suggest to everyone in the room that you should definitely take with you to your academy eventually?
Take with you, you mean like an object or like experience or?
An object, like something you should bring with you.
You're not allowed to have a watch during indoctrination because you're not allowed to like know what time it is, but definitely always have a watch after that because, I mean, I just don't understand it. I've seen classmates and everyone not wear watches, and of course I always go have to ask somebody what time it is, and it just never made sense to me, so always wear a watch, I guess.
All right, any other questions out there?
Got one over here.
I'm coming.
I'm a West Point mom. You keep talking about ring dance, so explain to us who don't know anything about it what it's all about.
So basically that's the big dance, the ceremony where everyone gets their class ring and they get it. I don't know if it's the same at other schools, but at our school we get it dipped. So they have water supposedly from the 7 seas, but it might just be from the Long Island Sound. But they have it in a binnacle, basically a compass holder, and everybody's date comes up and dips the ring with them. And it's just one of the traditions at our school, so it's when you get your class ring.
Very nice, thanks for sharing that. All right, I'm gonna wrap things up here unless there's one more question out there. All right, we got 2 more.
Hey, good afternoon, Ed Walker, Coast Guard Academy, class of 2020. One thing I wanted to know was, what is one experience or one event that, looking back on your midshipman career, that you would have done differently, and kind of something you could give advice for the prospective cadets here?
Definitely.
You can't say except the guest speaker role.
I'd say definitely in terms of sea projects, so a little bit of background. In the year at sea I was talking about, you have projects that you have to keep up with. It's like a big, really big binder, and none of it is really hard. It's just a whole lot of it, so that it comes down to time management. And the morning of turn-in, I did a lot of my projects. So I do not recommend that. It was awful. It was just really a bad experience, lack of sleep and all that. But I ended up getting like a C or a ribbon because of the grade. I still don't recommend it.
Hi, my name is Bruce, and my grandson's going to the Naval Academy. And what I've experienced with all these youngsters is, how's the food?
It wasn't this good. None of us actually got confirmations, but there's a lot of theories at our school that we had a lot of cat in our meals. There's always, every single day you go out behind the mess deck, and there'd be about 15 cats out there getting food, and then the number wasn't always 15. But it makes you appreciate the ship food a lot more.
Well, Brian, thank you. It was very informative. I know I learned a lot from the first conversation I had with you. That I found it very interesting to see what some of the traditions are, at this gym that we have in New York called the Merchant Marine Academy. So, congratulations. Thank you for being here with us today. And I've got a couple things here for a token of our appreciation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me here today.
And then this is the coveted West Point Society stemless wine glass. Right. Okay, well, that's going to finish up today's program. Again, good luck to all of you, parents, midshipmen, cadets. You're off to a great adventure, and drive safely, and feel free to stay and meet some of your future classmates. And that's going to finish it for today. Good afternoon.